Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Louise Houghton.
Welcome to the show. We have selected 5 of our favourite reports from this week for our highlights episode today. So let's start off with a quick look at what we have coming up. Moving performance. The singers in the Pendulum Choir sway to their music. Fairy tale focus. Copenhagen celebrates the 100th birthday of their Little Mermaid. And that's a wrap, using yarn instead of nails and screws to hold furniture together. Now, those of you of a certain age will remember the days when you wandered around with a stack of audio cassette tapes in your bag to play on your tape recorder, or when you would record your own compilation and pretend that you were the DJ in between each song. Well, it's hard to believe, but this first ever form of portable music is now 50 years old. And although CDs and MP3s have taken over in turn, there are still a number of people who are determined to keep the cassette tape alive.
Audio cassettes used to be everywhere. They provided the soundtrack for an entire generation. But now they're nearly extinct. Well, not quite. Writer and journalist Jan Dries knows where to find a few prize specimens. At Stahlplatt in Berlin, there are cassettes from all over the world. For his book on audio cassettes, he interviewed musicians and artists who talked about their favorite tape experiences.
What was absolutely fascinating about tapes was that all of a sudden people could put their own playlists together. This was broadcast yourself before YouTube.
DJ Sandra Heinzelmann never turned her back on audio cassettes. She always makes sure songs are queued up before she goes to work, so she doesn't have to spend time fast-forwarding and rewinding in the club. She likes the painstaking process.
You have to flick through the music like you used to in a CD or record shop, and then you take it out of the box, spool back and forth. It's tactile and it's fun.
Das hat was Haptisches und das macht Spaß.
The first cassette recorder was presented at the 1963 Berlin radio show by the Dutch company Philips, and it took the world by storm. 50 years later, Konrad Rodenberg from Berlin still wouldn't use anything else. He runs the label Froggy Records, where he works to bypass the marketing strategy of the industry's corporate giants. He either records his own music or that of friends. He does everything by hand, including the covers, and produces up to 100 audio cassettes, which he sells mainly at concerts.
I
really like the fact that you can hear the transient nature on the tape. And you hear the wear and tear. And that gives it a bit more personality.
There are some 60,000 tapes in Gregor Hildebrandt's archive. The Berlin-based artist got them from either private collections or from companies that had closed down. He uses them to make art. He'll record the same song onto a cassette over and over again, and then stick the magnetic tape onto a screen to display the various layers and make the music visible.
When I was studying back in '97, I worked on a picture that had several parts, and then I turned it into a book. I thought it would be good to include a song. And the most plausible way to do that at the time was to record it and then just stick it in.
Audio cassette sales peaked in 1989. Some 1.5 billion music cassettes were sold worldwide. Last year, audio cassette sales had sunk to 2 million.
When you think about audio cassettes and the effect they had on people, you're remembering a piece of musical history. I don't know if that's true for every compressed format that we're now using to record music.
Audio cassettes are likely to provide fond memories of the past for some time to come, and they may well remain a niche product for die-hard fans.
Such good memories there. But like everything, we move with the times, and that applies to the music that we listen to as well. Recently, there was a contemporary music festival even held in Switzerland, where you could hear all kinds of musical performances. One of them was by the Swiss Pendulum Choir, a unique ensemble of a cappella singers who are strapped to individual hydraulic platforms controlled by two performance artists. As you can see behind me, it appears quite bizarre, but the Pendulum Choir really get you into the swing of things.
The 9 singers on this movable platform create an unusual ensemble known as the Pendulum Choir. It's the brainchild of Swiss artists André and Michel de Coster.
The music I wrote is about breathing. We think of the choir as a lung, as something very organic. We explore the relationship between movement and music empirically.
The choreography, the movement of the machines, is precisely calculated, and yet every performance is still different. There are always slight changes. That means the two brothers have to react spontaneously. For instance, when the singing of a passage takes slightly longer than planned.
We've pre-programmed everything. We're there to switch on the prepared sequences, but still depending on how the choir sings.
Today the choir is performing in the artist's homeland, in western Switzerland. In the town of Cernier, they're appearing as part of Les Jardins Musicaux, an annual contemporary music festival. More than 200 people came to see and hear the Pendulum Choir and were thrilled by the performance.
I really loved it, yes. I don't know, I found it rather mesmerizing.
It raises questions. There's a futuristic aspect to it I like very much. I'm sure to keep reliving the performance in my mind. I'd like to see it again.
Wonderful, but it's not easy to take. It wasn't very cheerful.
A few hours earlier, the singers were getting strapped into their platforms, around a meter off the ground. The de Costers have worked with the same ensemble since the Pendulum Choir made its debut 2 years ago. Its members are classically trained singers from Switzerland, France, and Germany. The choir has performed internationally, and this year it's already won renowned awards in Austria and Japan.
It looks tough and dangerous and so forth, but it's not really so strange.
You can sing in any position. In opera, you sometimes have to sing while sitting or lying on your back.
The breath is difficult to breathing normally with the bells, but we have now make a lot of time, and now it's a second nature.
Just a few kilometers away from the festival venue is the artist's workshop, on the top floor of this building. Under the name Code.Act, the de Coster brothers have been designing and constructing prize-winning art installations since 1997. This one, called Cycloid E, transforms the swinging of a horizontal pendulum into sounds. The interaction between movement and sound is at the heart of this installation too. When creating the technology behind the Pendulum Choir, they tried to make the movements look natural. There's been just one close call when one of the platforms suddenly stopped moving.
The singer was trapped. He was stuck. And the other singers were in difficult positions too. Then audience members got up. They unbuckled the singers and helped them get down. It was quite a spectacle.
It was unpleasant. There were lots of people there. They thought it was great, but we were completely shocked.
Now every singer can bring the Pendulum Choir to a standstill at the touch of a button, should something go wrong. But standing at funny angles and singing funny sounds is part and parcel of the performance.
Few sculptures are as famous as the one that draws hundreds of thousands of tourists to Copenhagen's port. I'm talking, of course, about the statue of the Little Mermaid. It's based on the classic children's fairy tale penned in 1837 by Danish writer Hans Christian Andersen. Almost a century later, his compatriot Edvard Eriksson created the iconic sculpture, which is now 100 years old. As you'll see, the passage of time hasn't dimmed any of the enthusiasm for the Lady of the Sea.
She has millions of admirers around the world, all 125 centimeters of her. In fact, the statue of the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen doesn't look a day older than when she was first unveiled. Every year, she draws millions of admirers from all over the world.
I've heard a story about her when I was like 5 years old. My grandmother told her, and I really wanted to see it.
When I was a very young boy, we had stopped here once before, and of course I think all the tourists from all over the country stopped to see the mermaid.
She has always been here, and she's a part of Denmark and my life.
Spanish dancer Selena Munoz created a special show for the anniversary celebrations. She's already performed it for the Danish royal family. Like many here, she first encountered the fairy tale character as a young girl.
When I was 6, I asked my mother to read the fairy tale to me over and over again. I always liked the story. It's sad and not all children like it, but I identified with it.
In Hans Christian Andersen's tale, a young mermaid falls in love with a prince. She makes a deal with the sea witch to become human and seduce him, but he marries someone else. The Little Mermaid is told that she herself will die unless she kills the prince. She refuses and throws herself back into the sea. For her sacrifice, she's rewarded with immortality and becomes a daughter of the air.
She was never able to find herself, neither in the water nor on land. So she let her tongue be cut out. She lost her tail. And every step felt as though she were walking on swords. That's why expression is so important for my choreography.
The story of self-sacrifice and unrequited love still resonates today. To celebrate the Little Mermaid's birthday, 100 women jumped into the cold waters. Sculptor Edvard Eriksson was hired by a brewer to create a sculpture of the fairy tale figure. Little Mermaid's body was modeled after the sculptor's wife.
The brewer wanted her to be put into a lake out here, and my grandfather said no, she's going to be put into the sea, which is quite unusual to put a sculpture into the sea.
The stars of a Russian musical based on Hans Christian Andersen's tale came from Moscow to attend the celebrations.
It's about having a choice in life. It's better to have love, to feel desire with your whole heart and fulfill a dream than to wait all your life and get bitter and sad.
It's also about the immortal soul.
And immortal love.
As she celebrates her birthday, the Little Mermaid is still drawing people together from all over the world.
Now, it's not uncommon to want a signature piece of furniture in your home that's eye-catching and has a story behind it. Well, we're now featuring some items that not only look different, but are also made in a very unconventional way. And I'm not just spinning you any old line here, but designer Anton Alvarez is. He is literally spinning yarn around furniture to keep it together. And to do it, he had to come up with his own thread wrapping machine.
At first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking these were cloth dolls or toys. In fact, they're pieces of furniture wrapped together with yarn. They're the product of an idea by Anton Alvarez. The Swede has invented a process for assembling furniture without using screws or nails.
Traditionally, it's always inside of the material. It's a screw or a nail or a wooden dowel, but now this joint is on the outside, and that's why, of course, it creates its surface at the same time. So it creates a pattern at the same time as it's holding the pieces together.
This stool consists of some 20 parts, all held together by thread. As there was no practical method of doing this, Anton Alvarez came up with one called the thread wrapping machine, which he finished in 4 months. It uses a lot of glue.
Here is the thread. For now I use a polyester thread. The thread passes into this thread tensioner to put tension on the thread. And after that it goes into this glue container, as you see. The thread goes in dry and it comes out covered with glue. So in the wrapping moment, it both wraps and puts glue at the same time on the pieces that I put together.
He needs more than 20 meters of thread to complete just the leg of a chair. It's intense work. Depending on the size, a piece of furniture takes on average 2 to 3 days to complete.
I have the knowledge of how to join pieces of wood together in the best, strongest way. But it's a very time-consuming method, and this is, you can say, a rejection on my previous knowledge. It's a thread wrapping machine that joins wood with the only thread holding it together. And the benefits of this is I'm not only limited to wood, I can also work with other type of materials as plastic or aluminium.
Alvarez's works have often been exhibited at design fairs and museums in places such as Italy, Japan, or Britain, even at the prestigious London Design Museum. Collectors have paid €200 and more for an Alvarez. Eva Kumlin has been in charge of the Swedish design organization Svensk Form for the last 8 years. She says Anton Alvarez's work is pioneering.
So it doesn't look like anything you have seen before, but he tries to find out new ways of connecting furniture pieces or used pieces together, but also bringing in all this color element with the fabric, which makes it as an artwork as well.
Anton Alvarez was born in 1980 in the Swedish city of Uppsala. As a teenager, he was a graffiti artist, but after an apprenticeship as a carpenter, he studied interior design in Stockholm and design at London's Royal College of Art. He has studios in Stockholm and in Britain, but he's not always cooped up there.
When I take long walks or when I'm out running, it helps me to get my mind free, and I find new ideas.
Alvarez has often experimented with art in the past. This bench was made from a tree trunk, and the furniture series 1 to 3 was made out of plywood. Back in his Stockholm studio, Anton Alvarez says he wants to expand his thread wrapping technique to make more than just furniture.
In the future, I see this technique as something that could be applied on bigger things than furnitures. So I would like to see if I can make things in the scale of architecture, to make houses that only are held together with this technology.
Of course, his thread wrapping machine has a way to go before it can make anything you could live in. But Anton Alvarez's furniture is here and now, and it's already found buyers.
And speaking of buyers, there's no shortage of customers at the Wurstkuchl restaurant in the southern German city of Regensburg. They've been selling sausages there for 200 years, but have actually been around since medieval times. Establishments like this are kind of Germany's answer to the multinational fast food chains. And although they can still be found all over the country, it seems in Regensburg both tourists and locals prefer the German cuisine.
At this historic sausage kitchen called the Wurstkuchl, customers can dig into their bratwurst with sauerkraut on a plate or in a roll called a Regensburg Kipfel. Locals have been coming here to the old district of Regensburg for centuries to eat the delectable sausages. They're not interested in mainstream fast food chains.
We're all business people. Lunch has to go fast. The food's great here. I was born here. You know, I've only been to McDonald's once.
We show up, eat, leave. It's faster than McDonald's.
Fast food sounds so terrible. But when we want to eat something quickly, we come to see Gitti, the boss. She keeps me coming back. No, it's just a tradition here in Regensburg.
Brigitte Meyer's great-grandparents took over the small tavern in 1806, and it's belonged to the family ever since. But its story actually goes back much further.
The stone bridge was built between 1135 and 1146. It's not been proven because there aren't any documents left from that time. But the sausage kitchen was set up as a snack bar for the men making the bridge.
Sailors from the nearby port also liked to come to the tavern. At the time, there were only simple stews on the menu. Sausages were introduced about 200 years ago when Frau Meyer's ancestors took over the reins. The new generation is unlikely to do anything drastic.
My son thinks tradition is very important, and that's the most important thing I taught him.
He's not going to change the time-tested recipes one bit. A sausage is grilled for about 10 minutes, as it always has been.
Maybe it's like fast food because of the speed, but we're very clear and simple. There are no additives, which goes against conventional fast food. The rolls are homemade by a local baker, and the sausages are also handmade.
Handmade at the in-house butchers, some 3,000 a day. The ingredients are very straightforward. Salt and pepper, bacon and pork.
It's very tender meat. Well, that's the secret, you know. Well, not a secret, but it's just our way of making them. We use the finest cuts.
The mustard is also made according to an old secret recipe. Yellow and brown mustard flour, brown sugar, brandy vinegar, honey, and a bit of water are all mixed with fresh horseradish. It goes down well with the tourists.
Very good, yeah. Surprisingly, I didn't used to eat mustard, and I liked it.
The sauerkraut is good as well.
The sauerkraut is good,
yeah.
And very different because you always have rice with our food, but this is really good.
The Wurstkuchl is one of the Bavarian city's main attractions. And for some Americans, it tastes better than fast food at home.
This is probably healthier and much tastier. Yes. Are you bringing this place to Houston, Texas? We'll eat there. Okay?
There are no plans for the Wurstkuchl to open up across the Atlantic as yet, but those who want a taste of Bavaria back home can bring back Wurstkuchl sausages in a can and crack open a bottle of beer. It's tradition after all.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm now feeling a bit hungry, and I can do something about that as it's now time to say goodbye. So thank you for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.